They're reigning pop star divas. Lil Kim, known for her barely there outfits. Foxy Brown, for her no-nonsense lyrics. Now, what began as a war of words has escalated to a hail of bullets.
In the 1990s, rivalries and conflicts in hip-hop have long played a prominent role, fueling both creativity and controversy. Few feuds have left a more indelible mark than the intense conflict that unfolded between the iconic rap artist Lil Kim and various figures within the industry. Alongside the vibrant artistry and boundary-pushing style, Lil Kim's career became synonymous with controversy, reaching its boiling point with the Notorious Hot 97 shooting, shaking the music world to its core. Lil Kim was born Kimberly Denise Jones on July 11, 1974, in Brooklyn, New York. Her parents, Ruby Mae Jones and Linwood Jones, hail from Trinidad, with her father being a United States Marine. As a child, Kim was sent to a well-regarded Catholic school called Queen of All Saints in an attempt to provide a stable learning environment for her. Unfortunately, the stability didn't last long, and when Kim was only 8 years old, her parents' marriage crumbled. Her father became verbally and physically abusive towards her mom, frequently leaving her with black eyes, and later telling people that she had fallen. After her parents separated in 1983, Kim, her mom, and her brother all relied on the kindness of friends for shelter, even the time when they moved to New Rochelle, which was classified as a suburban area of New York. The neighborhood in New Rochelle was primarily all white, and it didn't take long before some girls started teasing Kim about her skin color. Her mother, Ruby Mae, really struggled for money, and it didn't take long before she was completely unable to support her family, thus granting custody of their 2 children back to their father Linwood. During an interview, Kim's mother explained, "I was basically living out of the trunk of my car. I didn't feel like it was appropriate for the children, so I let Kim go to live with her father." Back home, her father was frequently absent for reserve duty, so Kim and her brother were often left with their aunt, who lived in the projects and was raising several sons of her own. Despite the whole situation, the father and daughter relationship remained on good terms up until Kim's teenage years. According to Kim, she and her dad were really close up until she was around 13 and started taking an interest in boys. One time, she really liked a schoolmate and agreed to be his girlfriend. Unfortunately, when her father found out about it, he was outraged. Kim says he called her a and a saying, "You're just like your mother." To no surprise, hearing these kinds of words coming from a parent had a devastating effect on her. "If he hadn't said what he said to me, I probably would have stayed a virgin up until I was 21, but after that, I rebelled." Fights between the two became more and more frequent, and soon enough, violent. On more than one occasion, Kim remembers her morning wake-up call being a fist crashing into her face. It even got to a point where, according to Kim, during one fight, in an attempt to defend herself, she stabbed him in the shoulder with a pair of scissors. Fed up with all of it, Kim left home at the age of 14. She packed a bag and hit the cold New York streets, wandering in and out of neighbors' homes. She has often described her life during those years as a procession of doing whatever I had to survive. She peddled drugs for boyfriends, worked odd jobs in department stores like Macy's, and even had sex with older men who housed and fed her. She also hinted that she was sexually abused, though she has never named her abuser. Kim attended Sarah J. Hale Vocational High School for 2.5 years, but would eventually be transferred to Brooklyn College Academy due to not completing her schoolwork. Coincidentally enough, this would also be the school for Inga Marchand, better known as Foxy Brown. At the time, the two had a couple of things in common and were on good terms, despite Brown being 4 years younger. While their childhood stories differ, they both shared the same passion, which was music. Allegedly, they would talk on the phone for hours about how they would take over hip-hop and, despite anything, would support each other no matter what. After a lot of trials and tribulations, at the age of 19, Kim's life would finally take a turn when one day walking back from her work at Bloomingdale's, she would bump into Biggie on a street corner. She did an impromptu rap for Wallace, and after that, he was immediately sold. Kim said, "We lived on the same block in Brooklyn. I always thought he was cute, and when I first started talking to him, I felt like I'd known him for years." Biggie signed on for the job, bringing Kim into the fold of what everyone called the B.I.G family. He signed to Puff's label, Bad Boy Entertainment, and apart from his solo career, he also put together a hip-hop group called Junior M.A.F.I.A, whose members included several of his childhood friends, and now the only female member with her diminutive 4'11" stature, Kimberly Jones. Brown, who had been spitting rhymes since childhood, also found her way into the industry. While still a teenager, Brown won a talent contest in the Park Slope neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York. Members of the production team, trackmasters, who were working on LL Cool J's Mr. Smith album, were in attendance that night and were impressed enough to invite Brown to rap on one of the singles, called I Shotcha. The beat for the song was originally meant for Biggie, but music executive Chris Lyte insisted that the beat would be given to LL Cool J. I Shot Ya was released in 1995, and it marks Brown's first appearance on a record.
On the creek, open like raw ass cheeks. I'm flexing, raw dog without protection. Disease infested.
Soon enough, her cousin and the legend in the hip hop world, DJ Clark Kent, introduced her to the one and only Jay-Z. The same year, Kim would be featured on hits like Players Anthem and Get Money, fully securing her position as the first lady of Big's Junior Mafia crew.
I used to pack Macs and Cadillacs, now I pimp gats in the axe. Watch my niggas back.
However, according to DJ Clark Kent, in the very beginning of what would become Junior Mafia, Daddy O was one of the orchestrators of Junior Mafia, had Foxy going into Junior Mafia. While he remains unsure if Junior Mafia would have had two women, Foxy and Kim, Clark has explained that the eventual outcome of the lineup had nothing to do with Kim being added over Foxy. Kim's increasing popularity as a member of Junior Mafia allowed her to start a solo career, and shortly after the Conspiracy album was released in late 1995, she began working on what would become her debut album, Hardcore. At the same time, Brown was also making waves. She appeared on the Nutty Professor soundtrack on the songs Touch Me Tease Me by Case.
With Foxy Brown make case. Now we laid Bonnie McFly. Now I'm up in Jamaica breaking all your paper.
And Ain't No by Jay-Z.
So I stay deep.
What up, boo? Just keep me laced in the illest snakes, bank rolls and whips, back rubs in a French tub.
With only a few singles out, labels noticed her potential and immediately started a bidding war. At the beginning of 1996, Foxy landed a deal with Def Jam Records, adding then 17-year-old rapper to their roster. Right before signing to the label, both of them appeared on Total's single called No One Else.
Brown nigga, chromed out six of shit, bubbling, laying up with them Colombians.
The Totals track is the only song both women have been officially featured on. At this point, both Brooklyn natives were starting to see some success in their work and knew that the only way to push it further was to finally release an album. On November 12, 1996, Lil Kim released her debut album, titled Hardcore. The album consisted of 15 tracks, with special appearances from Diddy, Jermaine Dupri, Jay-Z, and Lil C's. It peaked at number 11 on the Billboard 200, sold 78,000 copies in its first week, and in 2001 was certified double platinum. Only a week later, on November 19th, Foxy Brown released her debut album called El Nana. The album was groundbreaking. It peaked at number 7 on the Billboard 200, sold 128,000 copies in its first week, and became platinum within 2.5 months. Moreover, it became the highest debut for a solo rap album by a woman, breaking the previous record, which was set by Lil Kim only a week prior. Well, all of it didn't seem to affect their relationship, and the pair seemed to be on good terms, with Foxy even shouting out Lil Kim on the title track.
Shaking my ass half naked, loving this life, waiting for Kim album to drop, knowing it's tight.
The media started to more and more compare both of them, seemingly trying to create a rivalry between the two. In 1997, Foxy Brown joined Nas, AZ, and Nature to form a hip-hop supergroup called The Firm. The same year, despite being interviewed separately, Kim and Brown appeared on the cover of the Source magazine, and in spite of the public's constant comparisons, the two still considered themselves friends. Moreover, Def Jam CEO, Leor Cohen, wanted to bring together both women for a joint album, titled Thelma and Louise, which they would have received $500,000 each if participated. Unfortunately, out of nowhere, both of the artists turned down the deal, marking the first hint that the two women were no longer on friendly terms. Years later, it's still a mystery what happened between the two, with DJ Clark Kent saying it's like one day, they started hating each other. All of a sudden, they just weren't cool. Kim Osorio, veteran hip-hop journalist and editor-in-chief of the Source magazine, said, "One story that I remember was about their album packaging. If you go back to both of their debut albums, you will notice that they have the same outfit. I remember hearing that one had borrowed the outfit from the other, and that led to them not speaking." While the reason was never confirmed, Kent elaborated on this in the interview by stating, "It could have been something super corny that just blown out of proportion, or it could have been something read in an interview that got read wrong and nobody around said, no, this is what she meant." Regardless of the reasoning, it was reported that by the end of 1997, Foxy and Brown were no longer in communication. At first, it was hard to understand whether all of these speculations were true or not, and if there was any beef at all, since both artists remained silent for some time and made zero comments. 2 years had gone by, and the beef eventually reached the music. The first song that mentioned the ongoing feud between the two was on Foxy Brown's second studio album, titled China Doll, on the song called My Life. In the song, she doesn't mention Kim, but talks about a friend who was like a sister to her, but would eventually have a fallout due to pride, mentioning Thelma and Louise, making a direct reference to their relationship.
You was my sister. We used to dream together how we could make it real big, do our thing together.
While it may seem like she talks about it in a more remorseful or nostalgic way, the record was a subtle diss to Lil Kim, especially since during this time, Brown had been supporting Lil Kim's rival, Faith Evans, in multiple interviews. In February 1999, a significant part of the media started to take notice and wrote articles about Brown suddenly sounding exactly like Lil Kim. On June 8, 1999, Lil C's released a single, Play Around, featuring Lil Kim and P. Diddy. In the song, Puff says,
"Stop trying to sound like her too."
While he doesn't mention Fox by name, it was most likely a reference to her, since she has been criticized for having similar style to Kim, including her use of sexually explicit lyrics. On June 27, 2000, Lil Kim released a single titled Notorious K.I.M, which was the first single of her second studio album. In the song, Kim didn't hold back and went in deep. She called out Brown for having fake raps, hinting that she doesn't write her own stuff, and also called out her erratic behavior, such as crashing her Range Rover in Flatbush with no license, mooning her neighbor, and attacking nail salon employees. She continued the song by saying that she isn't a star, and even her record label knows that. She would also reassure everyone that this was about Foxy Brown, with a line saying, "I bet on Lil C's before you, and your firm," a direct reference to the firm. Honorable mention, Shen was also caught in the crossfire, no pun intended, with the second verse of the song completely directed at him.
Bum ass nigga, don't even know how to bust a gun ass nigga, dumb ass nigga.
To no surprise, Foxy was pissed and decided to not be so sweet this time and don't hold back. On November 21st, 2000, Foxy was featured on a single titled Bang Bang by Capone and Orega. Foxy's verse starts with the same intro Kim used on Mobb Deep's Quiet Storm remix, which was also rumored to be a diss track towards her. She mentions the subliminal disses made towards her throughout the years by Kim and Diddy, referencing the track Play Around.
The talk slick is all that sneak shit. You and Diddy, I killed me with that subliminal.
The most troubling part of the diss happens when Brown starts to mock Kim for publicly mourning Biggie's death.
Let the nigga rest in peace and hop off his do you.
The lyrics to Bang Bang really sting Kim, and what seemed just like a light back and forth at each other quickly took a dark turn. While the situation escalated beyond it should've, this wasn't the end. On February 25th, 2001, the beef reached a new peak with devastating losses. At around 3 p.m., Lil Kim was leaving New York radio station Hot 97 when a fight broke out between two groups of 3 men. One of the men in the groups was Capone, one half of Capone and Orega, who was also Foxy Brown's friend. They were entering the Hot 97 building in promotion of interview with DJ Clue's new album, The Professional 2, which happened to also feature Lil Kim. What might have seemed as a verbal argument at first quickly turned into a full-blown shootout. More than 20 shots were fired, and one of the Capone's entourages, Efrain Ocasio, was shot in the back. While both of the parties, Lil Kim and Capone, denied any involvement in the shooting, police found the motive and ruled out it was a result of the verses Foxy recited in Bang Bang. Shaken up by the incident, Foxy tried to reach out to Lil Kim in hopes of settling a truce, and even appeared on TV talking about the situation live.
I just don't think somebody should get killed before people realize that a change has to happen.
It was outside New York City radio station Hot 97 last week. Police say it was Lil Kim's posse versus friends of Foxy Brown. 5 guns in all, 21 shots fired, and 1 man shot in the back. Now Foxy Brown, who was working on her new album at the time of the shooting, has invited Lil Kim and her crew to make peace.
We just want to stop it. We just want to say, look, let's put an end to it.
During the 4-year span leading up to Lil Kim's sentencing, Brown and Lil Kim continued to exchange subtle diss records towards each other. In 2003, Foxy Brown during an interview claimed that Lil Kim was jealous that Biggie was to include Brown in his Junior M.A.F.I.A collective, to which Kim didn't respond. In her final regards to the dispute, Brown stated, "Kim is the only female artist that keeps me on my toes. She's the only one that I can look at. And any other artist that says that they don't have that one person that keeps them driven is lying." On March 17, 2005, Lil Kim was convicted of 3 counts of conspiracy and 1 count of perjury for lying to a federal grand jury about her and her friend's involvement in the shooting. During the trial of her co-manager, Damian D. Rock Butler, and her bodyguard, Suif Gara Jackson, she testified not to have known that they were at the scene. However, video footage from a security camera placed all 3 at the scene, exiting the building. This directly contributed testimony before the grand jury, and in July, Kim was sentenced to 1 year in prison and 3 years of probation. Butler and Jackson pleaded guilty to gun charges. Jackson was sentenced to 12 years in prison as a part of a plea deal in which he admitted to firing at least 20 rounds during the incident. After serving about 12 months, Kim was released from prison on July 3, 2006. Following her release from prison, Lil Kim no longer acknowledged Brown, years later in an interview saying, "I don't even know her, and when I say that, I don't even know who she is these days. I wouldn't even know what her voice sounds like." Brown, on the other hand, has continuously targeted Lil Kim as a prime basis in her music and concert venues since her release. The two have been going back and forth at each other for years now, making this an even longer female version of Ja Rule versus 50 Cent and marking it as one of the most notorious female rap beefs in hip-hop history.